won't call them a meeting order because you're in good order. So, welcome to the District Planning and Regulation Committee meeting. Firstly, just call from the chair for any apologies. Our mayor's ex officio is away, but I don't think we've classed that as an apology, so just leave that. No other apologies? No, thank you. Item 2, conflict of interest. We need to be reported for minuting. No, we have none, so thank you for that. Just noting that our body of members is largely on this side, but the mayor is, don't think it's any convention, but we know where he is, so thank you. Sorry, please to order. Confirmation of minutes of the meeting of the DPNR committee held on Tuesday, 17th of September. Confirm the minutes. I think we'll probably just ask if anyone's got anything to I'll move them. You'll move? Yeah. So, Councillor Cairns, do we have a seconder? No.
No seconder.
I can't. Oh, so
technically, it's only.
Oh, we have Councillor Blackie. Were you present? Was I?
Present.
Yes, present.
Mayor Gordon.
Yourself present. Yes, thank you. I'll second that. We always speak to our motion there. I certainly have nothing to add. All those in favour? Aye. Yes. Carried. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Yeah. Yeah. Matters arising from the minutes. I assume not. Do we have any? No. 3.2. Okay. Moving on. 3.3. Notes of the workshop of the committee. 17th of September.
I'll move as well.
Okay. Councillor Blackie.
No, I can't. No, sure.
No, I can't.
So you and I.
It can be me. Thank goodness we're here. Thank you. So, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Okay. Deputations nil. Reports. We have an application to the Heritage Fund. They come periodically. So I invite Gina and Mark. I think that we do have it listed as not here. Yeah, he's been involved though, has he? Yeah. So thank you. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today we're just bringing you a request for funding. So the request is from the former Greynox boarding house for just over $6,000. I'll take the report as read, and if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Just around the reducted names that are on the application form, and I just know that it's signed on the back page. Are they supposed to be redacted, those names? And if so, should that name not be redacted as well?
I did notice the same thing when I was reviewing. I mean, have read the governance about that as well.
So ignore that.
Makes it fairly identifiable.
So we should ignore that name, is what we're saying.
Yes.
Right.
I've just got a question. Is there any specifications for the type of roofing material that we would use that's in keeping with heritage values, not so much just our planning rules? Long run colour steel on a historic building. So did we take that into account as going to be compliant? Does that affect our decision making?
I believe Ian did take it into consideration. I'm really sorry he's not here today and he's my heritage expert. I believe. Just trying to have a quick look.
Can I try to be difficult? Yes, we want a clarification or some suggestions.
Well, just maybe I can help from the point of view of dealing with historic buildings before, and to two of them that colour steel is acceptable in certain colours to Historic Places Trust. So they don't, the colours that colour steel have generally are colours that are the norm and have been for
both
many,
of the
many
colour
years.
and the type of steel, fabrication.
So if it's corrugated iron, the colours are pretty standard from about 100 years ago to what they are today.
Okay.
They just have longevity and all those sorts of things. So Historic Places Trust, in my experience, when we've dealt with them before, are okay with colour steel being used in certain colours.
Okay.
So I don't think they allow pink.
No, I'll continue the question and I might offer a comment on it as well. Yes, Councillor
I
Ridley.
just wondered if your concern was more the profile.
Your profile and fabrication and, in terms of, I can't quite picture it, but yes, the colour is one aspect, but profile, modernity, we do have occasional applications, I think, through Heritage. We had one a year ago with a very old wool shed where it was going to be replaced with a certain colour and type of wood. If it's compliant and it suits the purpose of maintaining the condition, personally, I'm supportive. But yeah, do we have any other questions on that or related questions? Unrelated.
Drop it to
Can do. Yes. Can.
Have a second.
All right. Second, Councillor Atkinson.
just speaking to it.
Yeah.
Just speaking to it, effectively the roofing project totaling $62,000, where we're providing $6,324. It's essentially to maintain the building's integrity and heritage value, and potentially if you didn't re-roof it, it would be a great deal of problems for the homeowner. So yeah, for the small amount of money that we're providing, whereas the homeowner is actually going to have to provide the balance anyway, $6,000 is well spent, I think, for this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Did you answer?
Look, it's $62,000 to put colour steel on a roof. If you're probably looking at $162,000 if you were to get it cut in the same profile that it was, and I would imagine that has been taken into account. I would be very surprised if it is not.
Thank you. And yes, it'll be no surprise to anyone that I'm a great supporter of heritage projects, and this one seems very worthy of. Well familiar with old buildings with roofing problems and other structural defects. So I'm happy to support it, and so I'll just call that's the conclusion of the contract. Yeah.
Can I just ask this? Why has the names and everything been redacted? For what reason?
It had full names and addresses of where the person lived within the report, so we changed it so that they're.
But if they're applying to a fund, any fund, it's a public fund, why would we redact the names?
It's privacy reasons.
But the address would be public.
What's the protection for? I mean, I'm not going to.
We do the
I
same
don't
for
wanna-
the board discretionary rights.
I've never had a board discretionary on a fund that's been name redacted.
Can we just from the can we both just consider that question and come back to
Yeah, I don't want to-
format process?
You don't need to do that right here, but I just find it a bit.
Yeah, and because I think it would be important. This is both public fund and it's the contentiousness of it. I would hesitate to say is actually pretty low, unless it's a. So yeah, anyway, can we just bring that back and perhaps channel that response back through the committee?
We'll have a conversation with governance and
Yeah.
governance perspective that might need to be.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. We've still got that. I'll put that motion as stated. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Right, good. Correspondence nil. Just move to. Give me a sec. I'm out to portfolio updates. Actually, Jason, if I could have for you to proceed just while I'm configuring my IT. Just reorder that.
No worries, Mr. Chairman, I've got paper notes this time. So I'll start off with buildings. So apologies, Mr. Chairman.
I'm feeling very thirsty.
Monty's starting to talk everyone.
So COAs have had a wee bit of a backlog developed, but that's predominantly linked to the staff sickness. So there's been a wee bit of a work shuffle to our external agents to assist with that. All inspections are all up to date. CCCs, so last year we had 1,542 and 89% of those were processed within 10 days. Consent applications are estimated for this financial year to sit around 1,653 versus budgeted, which is 1,955. So we're a little bit behind on consents for what we were planning for. Environmental services, this is probably more of a 2024 in summary. So on average, we received 434 service requests per month. So I compared that just out of interest to our census data from 2023. That works out to be 6.55 requests per 1,000 people per month. So just reading off that, I think it's actually a relatively low number. But I'll just do a quick call to everyone, including the public. If you do notice or anything, or you do wish to raise a service request, if you don't mind raising the service request through the official channels, and then if you want anyone in particular to be notified, CC them in, just so that the data that we're feeding through the system is a little bit more current, because I know that there's always going to be stuff that pops up and we go directly to the cause, but if we can start data logging that, it'll be more informative for future decisions. The leading complaint across the district at large is actually noise complaints, which I was quite surprised about. So noise spiked, so the peak season is usually December for obvious reasons, everyone's having a good time. So the difference between 2023, which was 84 complaints, it jumped to 132 for 2024. So we expect that's just predominantly due to population growth and density coming into the urban districts. Infringements spiked last October because the staff had a slightly different approach to dog registrations. So after a period of about 2 months, they issued about 5 reminders to dog owners, and they infringed everyone who hadn't registered by the 1st of October. And effectively what that meant is that everyone acted a lot quicker to register the dogs within the district, so it actually sped up compliance. Of those infringements, just under 50% of them were actually taken back because they acted within an appropriate time period. And a surprising fact is that increasing levels of compliance, not strictly linked to the council, but including NPI effects and increasing levies, it actually leads to various food vendors redacting their food safety plan and shutting up shop because the cost of compliance versus the nature of their business or how many they're doing is actually getting a lot higher. And as for civil defence, Community Hubs has had a wee bit of an approach to the schools. So there's been a lot of buy-in from both primary and secondary schools. And we could be looking in line to having just shy of 20 hubs by July, if everything keeps rolling out, which is really good for the district. There's going to be a roadshow coming along targeting Rangiora and Kaipoi with a focus on building public awareness of the aspects of an AFA's event or a Hipperangi range event. Obviously Kaipoi is more of the range, whereas Rangiora is probably more likely to be affected by the AFA. And it's just to have a forum where the public can ask those questions and actually understand the gravity of what may be. There's been a wee bit of a project of love for Simon and the team in terms of constructing an updated recovery plan, which should be finalised by the end of the year. It's been a big progress. It's been a big project in regards to updating everything and getting things current, because sometimes those plans kind of sit a wee bit on the shelf. But it's taken all of the lessons that we've learned from our experience over the last 10 years and putting it into one manual so that people can pick up and have a wee bit of a skeletal approach. Obviously, every disaster will be different in terms of how we respond to our community, but it gives us a wee bit of a framework which we can just jump into action for. And the Civil Defence and Emergency Management operations has recently just gone through a review, covering all of the operational aspects of our team. So it's been a great opportunity to see if there's any room for improvements and also places that we can celebrate on what we're doing well. That's, I believe, still in a draft report, so I would like to think that we'll be having a workshop or having that circulated after it gets finalised, after going through the management committee. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jason. Question, Deputy Mayor.
You just ran that AFA, you talked about having a consultation at Kaiapoi and Regiora. Given that people move around, and the Pegasus and certainly Oxford will be pretty well munted. I just wonder when you talk about it, so is it targeted at Kaiapoi and Regiora, not the district?
So I'll clarify, it's not a consultation or anything, it's actually a collaboration between regional and district civil defence.
Okay.
So regional is going to be coming in and they're going to be providing more of an informational kind of set, not what do you want us to do when we respond, but this is what may actually happen. If that clarifies.
Yeah, no, that does,
Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor. In regards to AF8, a lot of our water comes out of Kaiapoi, so Kaiapoi's supplying Regiora with all their water. What happens with, is there any backup with regard to water? Because if it comes from Kaiapoi and there's an issue with earthquakes in Kaiapoi, then effectively Regiora doesn't get any water. So what's the backup system with regard to that? Or is it safe? It's a tough question, isn't it?
That's a very big, pickly question. I might actually have to refer to my colleague of utilities, right? So the current approach is that they're seeking a greater alignment between the civil defence team in terms of EOC and all of the business as usual units around council to make sure that there are redundancies in place.
Doesn't the model assume that there is no water? In all those ones that I've been involved, after AF8, it assumes that there is no potable water coming out of the ground. You have to deliver it by, I don't know, Army, Navy, whatever, whichever way that purpose is. Is that right?
Are we directing this through? Cool.
We do look at a whole range of different scenarios as to what happens and whether or not water is available or not available. And if it's not, you're exactly right, we would be trucking it in, all depending on the severity. So the Kaiapoi wells fared pretty well in the Canterbury earthquake sequence, and we do also have backup wells that are the old Regiora wells before we moved the water supply down to Kaiapoi that can be brought back online if we were in a position to need to do that.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for me. One was, as you guys were just more of an invitation to perhaps look at the NPI food vendor regime. I just had to see some rural programs recently. They said that actually NPI become more flexible in their dealings with sort of market vendors and cheesemakers and raw milk producers and stuff. But what you sort of seem to be touching on is that perhaps it's not so easy still for some of those. In terms of food safety, security, registration, I don't know whether we could have some information coming back to sort of elaborate on that.
Happy to dig a little bit deeper into that, Mr. Chair. I think the general takeaway that I got away from our portfolio catch-up is it wasn't so much the rigour or the complication of achieving it, it's more the levies that have been put in place on top of to achieve that. So it may in fact be more flexible, but it may come at a wee bit of a cost.
Okay. No, I think. I was also going to just ask about this happened to be like a request in my ward area, an example of a resident who seemed to have concurrently a road issue, a noise and dust issue with the neighbours, a district planning issue, and I sort of thought, and I have to know these people, and I think it's gone back to the relevant sort of unit or department. But can we have some advice for me of is to encourage people just to keep making service requests, and then that gets directed to the relevant unit, or do we kind of make a judgment on ourselves? Because this one, I thought it was a noise and dust one, but actually the problem was more with roading and sealing and planning processes. So how do we steer some of these more complicated ones? Perhaps it's a process.
Generally speaking, so when we get a service request, our first action is to contact the customer to get a better understanding of what the issue is. Usually when we make that first contact is when we get that bigger picture as to what the issues are, in particular if there's more than one issue, and then we do try to coordinate between the various areas on a response. The service request is still the most appropriate way to inform us of these issues, because it does get logged in the system. It tracks how long it takes for us to respond, so we know how we're doing according to our targets, and it directs it to the most appropriate person most effectively. And then we can look at it and we can then get a really good understanding of the magnitude of the issue, because we have a log of how many service requests we have on a particular issue in a particular area. So it does add a lot of value for us in kind of getting that big picture as to what's happening by going through the service request system.
Thank you, I'll bear that in mind. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for that report. Thanks. Right, I'll jump into district planning, my portfolio report. Largely is circulated, barring a couple of wee typos. We've got solar farms, landfills and quarries. Seems to be sort of ambit at the moment, largely. Solar farm near Daikin Factory, period for a public consultation closes in early March. The view from staff was there's lots of interest, but not a lot of submissions yet. Expectation of a submission from a particular group of neighbours, immediate neighbours. The council has extended the period for submissions already, I think it is, by a week, due to a couple of notifications in the local newspaper. Didn't seem to cause any issue. The tram roads solar, just for members of information here, just near the Swan School, that we've had a hearing for that. I attended part of it. I think it was relatively sort of, I'd say short and sweet, but it wasn't a big hearing, but seems to be well run. Awaiting a decision on that one. White Rock landfill, hearing is likely in April. Over in the back of Oxford, the Woodstock quarry, that's still in appeal. The applicant has essentially been asked to go away and prepare a better submission, and that's really putting it quite crudely, but there's been a lot of back and forth, probably right since the start of this process. Yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that. It's been a long-running process to date. Just taking some advice and please stop me if it's not my place to make any recommendations, but my recommendation is portfolio holder is that in April the full council considers whether we take up a mediation option. Would you like to talk to that a little bit, in case of sort of that was the mediation option for the quarry we're talking, isn't it? Yeah. I got that wrong.
No, so with the Woodstock quarry
Woodstock
appeal,
quarry, yeah.
so as the chair has mentioned, the next step is for the applicant to prepare evidence that they would use as part of the hearing. So that's what the court has directed. The court has signaled that once that evidence is provided, which is due in mid-April, the court will give all section 274 parties 1 month to consider the evidence presented and to report back on if the parties, essentially if the parties agree to mediation.
Yeah.
Is what the court will be seeking direction from each of the 274 parties, would have an opportunity to provide their feedback once they see the evidence.
And this relates to only part of the dual. There's ECAM consents and WDC consents. So what does this relate to? Does it relate to both?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so is that so in the whole, given I know from this Oxford Hoka community, the Oxford, just the intensity of feeling and interest, and I felt uncomfortable making this recommendation here today that which something we would take to the actual meeting. Just in my role is it maybe to leeway to invite comment. Any consideration of that? No? Any thoughts? Okay, all right, we'll leave it at that. We'll don't need to. It's not a motion. We'll just leave it as a recommendation. Okay, thank you. Right, fast track. We're getting all the good ones today. Right, 4 items on the list for WDC is the way I've described it. Ahoka, which is Rolleston Industrial Limited. The Stokes property, forgive me, I think I've described it as Wood End, it's nearby Cuckoo, is it? Yep. There's an Oxford Road proposed development, Oxford Road, and of course Wood End bypass. Just to, there will be limited scope for public submissions on these applications, so it's not yet clear what input council may have anyway. The fast track panel will decide who they take comments from. Adjacent property owners will be able to comment as part of that fast tracking application, but public involvement will be less rather than more. It appears at this stage. It would be fair to say that it was seeking more guidance and information from as to what involvement will have and what parameters there are. Again, sort of considering where we are with this process, my preference is for the March meeting of the DPNR to consider the delegation on who represents WDC in these processes, and I understand taking advice from staff that this is would almost or very likely be a sort of a technical process, a staff delegation, and probably of senior management. That could be one of the recommendations, but like yourself, Kelly, and others. Staff, as I've noted here, report already had delegation authority, but DPNR meeting in March would be an opportunity for councillors to ask questions and provide input. That's what I see. Anyway. And we thought actually I thought there'd be some value in this section, also likely including a Q&A on fast track process, so that we might have, if we're really lucky, we might have more information covered by then. So no promises. So that's probably concludes for me. Any question in front of you, Councillor Keynes?
Just in terms of the fast track process, is there any indication as to the time frame as to when they're going to make some of these decisions about the four projects that are within our district? Or is it not that fast?
Okay, there are time frames, but maybe not what we want. Yeah.
So towards the, I think it was on the 7th of February, the government released the application forms and process and everything for the applicants will have to go through in terms of projects in this district. We don't have any good timeframes as to when anybody may or may not make a fast track application. application. We have had initial discussions with the, just trying to remember what they had called it in their fast track application, but essentially the momentum development in Kaipoi. They're still making some decisions on what they intend to do. That potentially will be the first one that is applied for in the district. The other ones, I understand that they are unlikely to be, within the next month or so time frame. So it'll be sometime further out, but really don't have much better intel than that.
Well, thank you. Councillor Rubin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just carrying on from fast track, do I take it from what you've said it's unlikely that elected members could be appointed, or an elected member could be appointed to the panel?
That was my understanding, was that right? Yeah.
I think there's probably two key points. The report seeking delegation, so as part of the legislation, the local council, so we would get to provide comment on applications within the district. We, through our normal delegations, because this is different legislation than the RMA, we don't have specific delegations to staff to do that. So that's one step that we need to do in terms of putting in place staff delegations. So we did something similar with the COVID fast track legislation, where it was delegated to the planning manager and project delivery manager to provide comments on that. So we need to think about that. So that's one step, and that's kind of more the technical expertise delegations. Then there's a second step, which is panel appointments. So the panel convener will be the person who would come to us asking for nominations for who our representative on the expert panel is. They haven't given any indication as to if they're going to, what they're going to be looking for that. What we can say with the previous COVID fast track, the panel convener specifically directed us as to what type of appointment they were looking for. So for example, in that instance, they were specifically seeking council to appoint an expert planner to that panel. So we don't know how it might work for each specific application, and it is potentially going to depend on what the panel convener requests and how much, if they don't give us any direction, then it would be up to, the council's discretion as to who they appoint, but they could provide us with specific direction as to the type of person that they are looking for on the panel.
There are the two processes, as you rightly point out. As far as the panel's concerned, I thought it was to provide local input, and somebody like Councillor Atkinson, haven't talked to him, but might be a suitable person to be on the panel. Secondly, rather than delegate the council's submission, could not the council itself make a submission? Since this isn't an RMA process, it's a different process.
I don't think that they're calling for submissions. They're calling for comment, and we don't know if that's, what they're going to specifically, if they're going to define that. I guess just from experience with previous legislation, what they were asking us to do is to look at proposed conditions, provide input on the specific wording of proposed conditions. So it was providing comment on the appropriateness of the, I remember looking at the figures that they used for sizing stormwater. So it was getting more into the technical detail comment rather than,
So they've already made
submission.
a decision to approve it and they're only looking at the conditions.
I wouldn't say that, but I'm just giving an example of what we did in the past and the type of comment that they were looking for.
Could that be something that we consider, I suppose, the type of comment that we offer, who offers it at our next meeting, or could be, I don't know, even on the agenda, because one of the processes I went through is sitting in the open one for PC31 is that the community feedback was very direct, easily understood, sometimes a bit emotive, but then large parts of that process then went off to other sort of side hearings, correspondence with technical staff, and the general feedback, it's a different process, was that yes, the people had been listened to and fed into, but it then became a process where public submissions didn't really factor in the decision. So I don't know. But perhaps I'm speaking at the top of my head. Deputy Mayor, you've seen a lot of these processes. What do you think?
Well, my understanding of what Fast Track said is very simple. We don't get jumped on council.
Yeah.
Because you're too bureaucratic, so we don't want you.
Yeah.
We'll go and get the comment off the staff that's required, that they have. And my understanding is that there is no room for elected members on the panel. When the panel was set by the government, it's already done. I mean, they've already gone through the first bit. We know who the panel is to hear each one. No, I mean, my understanding is that that's already there. It's being done. They've already got the first lot in. The panel's being considered. If there was room for elected members on there, local members, they would have done that by now. They're already considering. So they haven't made decisions, but they've asked for more information. As my understanding from Kelly's department and those sort of departments, but we've got nothing to do with it. It's out of our hands. It's now in the hands of the government. And remembering that the fast track process last time took about 6 months longer than the normal process. Not the difference with this is the projects that are in there. It's not about the time, but I find it rather ironic that the name of it is fast track when it takes longer than the normal process. Yeah. But the result may be different, and that's the thing. That's the bit that's the problem for councils. They may come out and say, well, we're going to build the application you had for, I don't know, the middle of the swamp in TKT's land, and we've already said no. The courts have already said no, they might say yes. And quite frankly, there'll be nothing you can do about that. It's the way it is. Don't have to like it, it's the way it is.
Alright, well, I think we're just, sorry, further question? Yep.
Yeah, I thought there was scope for a local representative to be on that panel.
Not
to consider.
They did, am I right, Kelly? They did consider that, but my understanding is that I have heard nothing that actually said that they have actually allowed that.
I had thought that there's still the option, so you're correct, they've started the process with appointing the panel conveners and panel members, and it's been all, they've got pretty strict guidelines on it, and basically it needs to be a retired environment court or high court judge or an expert planner is all they have at the moment. I think that there is still the option of having a local appointee, but that is again going to come from the panel convener as to what those
Can we go perhaps come back and determine that? It'll be nice to know, just for clarity. Yeah, that'll be good if it is there, even if it's a slim chance being appointed.
Yep.
That'll be good. Okay, I'll conclude there. If there's no more questions on the report. Okay. Thank you. moving on, we have business promotion in town centres, Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've already sent through my report. I'll just highlight the promotions review in terms of that Mark and I interviewed all of the various different stakeholders throughout the district, and we then presented that to staff. The staff are now currently working on providing various different options. They're also interviewing councils to see as to how they fund their various different events, and there'll be a workshop that will be conducted with stakeholders and interested council members as well, and then that outcome will then be presented back to council for a decision. They've given me an indication that potentially it could come to us, or we'll have a decision, or a decision potentially could be made in September. It'll all come down to, currently Vanessa, one of the staff members, is currently working on various different options. But it'll be interesting to see what she comes up with.
Just yep, continue. Question.
So a decision in September or a recommendation to council?
Recommendation, sorry. Yep.
So that will be recommended to the new council?
Potentially, yeah. So ideally what they're looking at doing is either they'll be making a recommendation to put it into the next annual plan or the long-term plan. Thank you for the clarification.
It's a question.
It's a long day.
A question on possibly the financial sustainability in the meantime of the promotions groups in the meantime in this financial year. That's another matter. I know it's not strategy, but you know, are we monitoring that closely in our side? I know one of our groups is Oxford has got some real concerns.
Just to put a bit of a point of order here, it's financial and in public.
Yeah.
So I think you need to be a bit careful about
Yeah,
your
I
answers here, or refer it to when you are a public expert.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The
Might be an idea, yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Right, that's your conclusion. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 8, matters referred from the Ashwangura Community Board. Approval of the design for 309 High Street car park. Right, do we have anyone to speak to the
Shane's on the.
Oh, Shane. Thank you, Shane.
Right,
Shane's
no, it's Kieran.
Kieran, we've got Shane on the line. Yep, we've got Kieran and Gina. So, right. Who do I defer to or open the floor to? Yeah, like to lead.
Alright, good afternoon. Don can't make it today, and so I presented this as the Rangiora Community Board late last year. I've run with it. This design or report and associated design for the Town Hall car park was presented to the Rangiora Community Board and UNR for approval, I think it was possibly November last year. Today we are seeking the approval to establish the P180, or the 3-hour time limit on the redeveloped Town Hall car park. We have discussed that 3-hour time limit with the cinema operators, and they consider that appropriate for the longer movies so that people don't get caught out and ticketed if they want to stay for 2 movies or if there happens to be a longer movie in session. The existing P5 and mobility parking on High Street will remain as it is, and the proposed additional mobility park on High Street would also remain unrestricted. I'll take the report as read, and between the two of us we can take questions.
Okay. On the floor, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the word, so on the report, the O about the mobility parking and remain unrestricted. How is that sort of sign written? And the reason I ask this is that most of the people that I've got in the access group, if they've got all the other signage says 180, then they double it, and that's what they see is their time that they can stay in the car park. They effectively always double what the others are. So when you say unrestricted, will there actually be a time frame? Or, because I get the feeling, talking to them, there's a real level of confusion between, say, Christchurch and the Waimakariri with regard to mobility parking and how long they can actually stay there. Thank you.
You're right, there is a lot of confusion, and that's around the legalities of the sign and what can and can't be enforced. So it has to have the P. Actually, Luke Lee would be a really good person to talk to about this, but it has to have the P and the number following it on either on the same sign or the same sign post for the mobility park. So, for example, if you've got, say, a P120 and it comes up to a mobility park and it doesn't have a time restriction on it, and the arrow on the 120 is pointing the other way, it will be an unrestricted park, so they can park there all day.
Okay.
And throughout the district, we've got a lot of that because we end up putting excess signs around. So the second report that I'm presenting this afternoon will go into that a little bit more. But essentially, if it has P1, this one's going to remain unrestricted, so they could stay all day. Within the car park, they're going to be P180, and that will be P180, so they won't double it. It will be subject to that same restriction. So hopefully that makes sense.
It does to me. In terms of communicating to the accessibility group, is this something that you'd be doing so is everybody's clear there, or how are you going to communicate this? Because I would have said it's different, what you're explaining is different to what they understand.
Yeah, it sounds like they've come up with their own method of developing a time limit, but you'll probably find that they're actually on unrestricted parts. Because if they are restricted, then the number will be very clear to them.
Okay.
So we can follow up on that.
Thank you.
Can I just add one item to that? Sorry, really quickly, one more clarification on that, or two clarifications. For starters, the doubling of time is set out in the parking strategy at present, and at present, P30s and P60s are the only restricted times, restricted parking that can be doubled. Anything longer is not actually technically allowed to be doubled, but that's been sitting in this gray area of the parking strategy. You may be aware we're working on a revision of the parking bylaw that's going to be including traffic as well, and as part of that we're looking to clean this up and clarify, and so that will also be a good opportunity to, one, make sure our signing at all mobility car parks is clearer on what's allowed, and two, communicate to the community what the expectations are around that.
Lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Weaver.
Thank you. Kieran, what's the existing time restriction on a normal park at the town hall at the moment?
120.
120, so we're giving an extra hour. Right. Thank you.
Further questions? No, move, happy to move. Deputy Mayor, happy to second. All right, I think Jason might beat to it. 10. Thank you. But you just want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's a good report and it makes sense to me.
Any thoughts there? I think that's good. All right. And all right, on that basis, I'll move the recommendation. Those in favour? All right. Against? Thank you. Right. Traffic again. We've got updating parking, item 9, updating parking restrictions at different locations in Oxford. Approval to consult on proposed new restrictions. I think we've got Shane talking to that one. I think you're probably the lead.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Just really quick context for this part of the parking management plan process we've been working through in the 2 major town centres. One of the ancillary processes is approaching the other townships to see what low-hanging fruit we can address as far as parking issues go in Oxford and Wood End Pegasus town centres. So this is part of a 2-part approach we've been working within Oxford, trying to rectify existing restrictions that are presently signed on the ground but haven't been formalized within the schedule, or there was some confusion around the wording at Oxford Area School. Parallel to this and a little bit behind, but hopefully a couple of weeks away from embarking, we're looking at consultation with the Oxford community around some changes to parking on Oxford Main Street. These are the 2 sort of low-hanging fruit elements that came from Oxford Hoka Community Board. With that, I'll take the report as read, and any questions?
Just note from the chair, initially I think you almost touched on there, the Oxford Hoka Community Board has considered this report at its meeting held on 5th of February. So I know the Oxford community's been, subject to not so much parking in traffic-related matters. So it has gone through community board. Thank you, Councillor King's question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Shane. In terms of, during the accessibility group, somebody raised the question that it doesn't relate to parking, but it's sign writing, and they were suggesting that people rip through Oxford at quite a rate of knots, and they were suggesting that there be a red line or something at the 50k sign at both ends of the main street to try and get people to slow down. Was that discussed at any point? So if you're doing road marking and that sort of stuff, if that could be done at the same time? Or will it need to follow that with the accessibility group and pass that information on to your group if it fits within the same? Or is it going to be different?
That just to keep things tracked, that might be worth following up separately. This is there were no physical works or limited physical works out of this. This was more formalizing on the schedule end, so there shouldn't be much in the way of marking coming out of this proposal. Obviously, the sort of second part, looking at parking around Oxford Main Street, that may result in some markings. I know speeds on Main Street are certainly a topic on our radar, but it wouldn't hurt to follow up separately with that just to make sure that specific item stays on our radar.
Right. The question, I think Councillor Redmond just was.
Could I just clarify that in my role as portfolio holder for roading? I've raised that issue that you raised, Councillor Keynes, with staff, and the access group, or certainly Shona, had asked if it could be done, the road markings, in this current financial year. I've gone to roading twice, and the answer is no. But it is apparently programmed in the next financial year. That to put a red slurry across the road apparently is reasonably expensive, and it does have to be maintained. It's not as easy as just painting on the road. So roading do have that matter on their horizon.
So the next financial year.
Next financial.
Cool. Thank you.
Did you hear?
Yeah, look, it's on the same subject, which is not part of this report. But I would, and not for now, but I would like to know the average speeds through the street and when we last did them, to come back to this committee to rip utilities and roading or somewhere. They've had 3 goes at trying to get the speed limit down and been turned down each time. I'm one of those that vote for it to be turned down. Big wide street in a rural area. But I would be interested in the future to know what the average speeds are going through there and how long since they've been done. Don't want to know now, but for the future when we get a chance to have a bit of another look at it, I think.
Okay, thank you. Yes, just for me that touches on the historic matter, the historic vote, but it was in the last term of council. It was a slipping vote. I'm always hearing in this term from our community board about that vote, and when we revisit it, where the community is now. That's coming up. Will be coming up sort of in 3 years. I don't know whether that's significant, but the community changes. Just wondering whether that speed review can form part of this. It's not in this term of council. I think as elected members we should be sort of, if we're going to revisit it, we should be doing it periodically, more regularly. Any feedback on that, Shane? I know that Oxford would have been subject to perhaps a different policy under the last government. We now have a different government, but yeah.
So I can address the initial question around measurement of speeds. So we have a count station that's a little east of High Street in the 70 zone that is counted every year. The other primary count station on Main Street is a little bit west of Harewood Road, and it looks like it should be done last month, perhaps. I don't see the data in just yet. We should have, it's on a 3-year basis, and it was last done January 2022. So we should have updated numbers on Main Street in the very near future. With regards to evaluating the speed limit, yes, there is a new approach and framework for that. Certainly, if that is a direction that preference to go, and we would be happy to evaluate that. There are more hoops to jump through in terms of the formalized cost-benefit analysis and the consultation, but that's certainly one. Once it would probably be good to give it another couple weeks at a minimum, just to get the records sorted from our account contractor, but we'll have numbers to work off of in the very near future, and can certainly make a decision if it makes sense to evaluate the speed limits.
Well, as it's been noted, it's slightly off track of this report, but it is there, so that's nice to have that sort of clarification. So happy to keep on the report. The report, Deputy Mayor, who is seconder for that, over in the Councillor Goldsworthy. All right, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Good discussion. Good fight.
I didn't even debate the speed themselves. Has that ever happened before? Right. Item 10, the matter referred from the Kaiapoi to a Hiwi Community Board. Charles Street approval of the scheme design, proposed relocation of a mobility park. Kieran, backhand. Thank you.
All right. So the report that's in front of you this afternoon was presented to the KTCB last week and to UNR this morning when they approved the design. That design includes the relocation of the existing mobility park. The proposed mobility park would be located towards the east outside Paris for the weekend, and it really needs to be relocated due to some work that NZ Post are proposing to do in conjunction with our contract. They're looking to widen or slightly relocate their vehicle entrance, and they will be contributing to do towards that project, and they are entitled to do that as well. So this afternoon we're looking for approval of the relocation of the mobility park, the implementation of P120 time restriction, which I believe is currently signposted but is not in the parking schedule. And that time restriction runs from outside Paris for the weekend, where GPS is currently blacked out some no stopping lines, so that would become parking, and up to Tom Ayres Drive. It also seeks the implementation of a P120 time restriction on an unrestricted mobility park, which is at the western end of the Angle Park. The adjacent parks are actually P15, and this is where we were talking before. The adjacent parks are P15, but that was always unrestricted. So Shane mentioned before about the doubling of the time. That was, I haven't heard that before, but we had quite a discussion at a staff level around what that time restriction should be. We did think that P15 was too short. At one stage it was going to be P30, and then we settled on P120. And that time restriction was also discussed in UNR this morning, where it got approved as the P120. So hopefully I haven't confused things too much with that, but I'll take questions.
Okay. Councillor Cairns,
Thank you. Thanks, Kieran. In terms of the vegetation that's going to be removed so as to move the entrance by the post office, is New Zealand Post removing that, or who's doing it?
So they will be paying for the extra overhead costs for the work within the road reserve, but they've actually made no indication as to when they're going to remove that plant. So within the contract, we do have a provisional item to remove that we will put to them, but we are struggling to get a commitment from them as to when that will be removed. So what we're hoping for is a sharp price that we can put to them and say, do it now under our contract and you won't get a better deal. We'll have the traffic management covered and all the rest of that.
This is a slightly a chart that the drainage into there doesn't seem to work, or it's going in different directions. Is that going to be cleaned up at the same time, or will that be a different contract?
That would be part of the contract works that they do inside their property. So they have been talking to the property team about an easement to use the existing B channel that's, I wish assuming it must be on the boundary of the Paris for the Weekend property. So yes, that was going to be included in the work that they are doing, not the work that we are doing.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thanks, Kieran. Did I hear you say that someone had been painting over our road markings?
Yes, so there was no stopping lines outside, well, it wouldn't have been Paris for the Weekend at the time, I don't, actually no, it would have been. And that's been blacked out and is now used for parking. I don't know whether or not that was run through the committee or not, I don't know the background on that.
So that blackout was unauthorised.
There's 2 new vehicle entrances that were created for the Paris for the Weekend when it was moved back and up. So it was part of that development, but I just don't know the background on whether that was approved or not. Sorry.
Well, would staff be able to look into it and see if it was approved, and if not, give a suitable reprimand to whoever you suspect did it?
Better you don't.
No, I'll well take that under advisement. I don't know whether we're in the business of chasing road painters, but if it comes to regulation, I think we are. Yeah. Right. No further discussion. Any other questions? No. Do we have a mover for this one? As we head towards the time frame? No. Oh, okay. Well, we'll change it up. Councillor Cairns, we move first. Second. Yeah. So any commentary on that? Thank you. No, nothing there.
Kira's.
Kira's mate. Thank you. All right. Deputy Mayor, thank you. I'll move that all those in favour say aye. Against? Carry. Just note before we just wrap up the tale, we just had it circulated while we're in the meeting from our development planning manager Matt Bacon. He's helpfully informed us about the nominations for fast tracking the process. We can all read, but I am conscious. I might just read it out because we're in a public process. We should all hear it, and it should be circulated as part of this meeting. Matt tells us as follows: the members of the panel must collectively have knowledge, skills, and expertise relevant to the approval sought in a substantive application, and expertise in environmental matters. They must include at least one member who has an understanding of Te Ao Māori and Maori development. Panels must include a person nominated by the relevant local authorities. That's amendment 2. Okay. One key point is that the panel convener will likely decide exactly how this requirement is enacted. For example, requiring that person to be accredited. We won't know this until an application progresses through the EPA. We also won't know exactly what council's role is in each fast track proposal, as the applications may cross over other legislation and approval processes as well. For example, joint consent with ECAN. And for those interested, the following there's a web link there for more information on panels. So thank you, Matt, for listening in. That's useful. Question? Oh yeah, question on that.
So what would a council do if they haven't got a staff member or a councillor with the expertise and hasn't got Te Ao Māori?
Don't know who would sound the question to the gods actually, but yeah.
Well, part of the qualification is understanding the process of Te Ao Māori. You don't speak it, but I mean it's understanding.
Okay, so
that's part of the process that you go through when you do your commissioner training.
Yeah, but is that what it's aiming at? They want a commissioner.
I'm guessing that's Matt's far better. I mean, he's clarified for us what we actually didn't know, as it so happens, and he's clarified that well. So yeah, but my understanding of that would be if you were qualified, then that is part of that course. So would be my guess, but it is a guess.
That refers to the whole panel. So our nominee does not have to be Maori, The degree of expertise, I don't know.
All right, I think that's probably enough questions and clarifications for now, but that's good, so that'll just form that part of the management. Right, number 11, questions understanding the orders. We have none. 12, urgent general business, nothing stated, nothing I'm aware of. Next meeting, DPNR, will be held on the 18th of March 2025. Thank you for your time.